Welcome back. Mr. Clark here. Time to go through 9.6. As we go through 9.6, we're going to look at new ways of lives for citizens during the late 1800s. We're going to see some new forms of entertainment. We're going to see how new technology and new types of stores began to market products, goods, and services to citizens, and how this would impact American standard of living. We'll analyze mass culture and education in the late 1800s, look at new popular cultural movements in the late 1800s, and see how society is moving forward as you go from the 19th century and eventually into the 20th century. Be sure that you check your 9.6 focus questions. Make sure you're adding to any areas where you may need to. Remember, you don't have to delete what you have, just kind of add to your responses as we move forward. Right, somebody who's probably pretty famous, somebody you've probably read about and read some of his works in language arts class would be Mark Twain. He kind of looked at American lives and the and society in general in 1873 in his novel The Gilded Age. He kind of depicted society during this period of time as gilded, or having kind of a rotten core covered with gold paint, meaning really shiny on the outside, but deep down inside, there were a lot of citizens who were struggling during this period of time. During this period of time, most Americans were not quite as cynical or skeptical as Mark Twain was. The dizzying array of things to do and buy convinced many in the middle class that modern America was going through what was remembered as a true golden age. However, Mark Twain's label did stick, and historians kind of refer to this period of time as the Gilded Age during the last decades of the 19th century. Some of the new traits of the middle class that they were adopting during this period of time in history: shopping more, going to sporting events, reading popular magazines, getting the newspaper. All this contributed to the development of a commonly shared American culture. As you read through magazines and newspapers and learn how other people are living, you too often want to embrace some of those same cultural traits. 3, during the Gilded Age, the standard of living rose amongst Americans. What technological developments contributed to the rise in the standard of living? The fact that businesses were now able to mass produce items has made many things, such as clothing, books, food, easier and cheaper and more affordable to purchase than ever before. Also, 2, innovations in sanitation, including indoor plumbing, better healthcare, also improved the lives of citizens, increasing life expectancy and the standard of living. For what is conspicuous consumerism, is this still prevalent today? This is the buying of many items, especially things that are expensive in order to appear successful. So when you see consumerism, sometimes people buy something not out of necessity or need, but out of an attempt to kind of impress a friend, family members, neighbors, whatever it might be. Many Americans still today remain somewhat superficial. Probably the thing that would be most often superficial in today's society are the phones. Everybody's looking to get the new iPhone or the new technology that comes out, rather than just keeping what they might have as a perfectly workable and useful device, but they want the upgraded model so they can kind of look cool amongst their friends. 5, had innovations in marketing and sales encourage conspicuous consumerism. Innovations in marketing, such as large newspaper advertisements, mail order catalogs, department stores, made it easier and perhaps more tempting to buy additional items. Many of these innovations introduced people to new household items, devices, style of clothing, creating a market for them. Sometimes you didn't even know about a product, and then you read an advertisement, and all of a sudden you figured you had to have that product. Expanding on this trend and developing in Britain, France, Russia, and many other countries, what did Roland H. Macy open in 1858? Well, I'm sure you can guess. He opened the first department store in New York, obviously known as Macy's, in 1858. It soon became the largest single store in all of America, and it served as a model for many other American stores moving forward. Its sales methods included widespread advertising, a variety of good organized into departments. So if you go into a traditional Macy's, they have the men's department, the women's department, children, appliances, makeup, shoes, things like that. Hence the name department store. By the 1870s, many big cities had department stores in addition to Macy's. Macy's, of course, too, is famous for the Macy's Day Parade. As you can see, Mickey Mouse there in a early parade. Seven, how did innovations impact the lives of men during this period of time? Innovations in public transportation allowed families to live a little bit more distance from the dirt, the noise, the hustle and the bustle of industry in the center of cities. They began to either move to the outskirts of cities or, in some cases, the suburbs. However, this often meant that men became commuters, leaving home early in the morning and returning late in the evening. Still, their culture taught them hard work would bring the reward of more discretionary income, basically extra money to spend, which would allow them to purchase some of these new exciting products that were newly available on the market. What is meant by mass culture? Well, one of the impacts of the spread of transportation, communication, advertising was that Americans across the country became more and more alike in their consumption patterns, their way of life, what they were doing on a daily basis. Rich and poor could wear the same clothing, although the quality of that clothing may vary. Household gadgets, toys, food preferences were often the same from home to home or house to house. Between 1870 and 1900, how did the number of newspapers change in the United States? It increased from 600 to more than 1,600 newspapers in circulation. Of course, that newspaper number today is on the decline, as the print media today in contemporary times in 2020 and moving forward is going to become lesser and lesser impactful as we go on to more and more digital or online sources to get our news. A name you may be familiar with, Pulitzer, Joseph Pulitzer. He was a Hungarian immigrant who had fought in the Civil War, active in Missouri politics in the 1870s. Pulitzer eventually moved to New York City in the 1880s, where he started the morning newspaper, The World. It was so successful that Pulitzer soon started publishing the Evening World, both a morning and evening newspaper. Papers were inexpensive, but they were supported in part by businesses that placed advertisements in their pages. Of course, Pulitzer is best known for the Pulitzer Prize for Journalism, which is the most prestigious award a journalist can receive even today, 150 years later. The turn of the century brought many firsts, including advances in entertainment, education, and the arts. We're going to take a look at some of those advancements here. In the area of entertainment, some of the new forms of entertainment around the turn of the century were vaudeville, ragtime music, baseball and other sports, as well as amusement parks, Coney Island. Today, obviously nearby, we have Six Flags Great Adventure and many amusement rides that are located at the Jersey Shore. Education, compulsory grade school education, development of liberal arts education in the United States, new educational opportunities for women and African Americans. Art, novels that described realistic problems, paintings that portrayed city life in a real and honest way. How do the needs of businesses and industry impact public education in the United States? Well, in response to the need for workers, schools taught practical skills in science, woodworking, drafting, eventually later on in the 1900s, mechanics. The public school curriculum also included business courses so that businesses would have trained workers. The literacy rate by 1900 had climbed to 90%. We look at the educational opportunities available to women and African Americans at the turn of the century. These opportunities were growing and expanding, but still limited in comparison to white men. Many women's colleges were established and state universities began to accept women. Also during that time, colleges for African Americans were established. You can see the enrollment rates for whites versus African Americans in non-whites in terms of the blue and the purple in regard to education and literacy rates. A boom in popular entertainment. Urban areas with thousands of people became centers for new types of entertainment during the Gilded Age. Clubs, music halls, sports venues attracted large crowds who were willing to spend their extra money to go see a sporting event, a play, listen to music. The middle class began to take vacations at this time, while the working class looked for opportunities to escape from the busy city life, even if it was just for a day. In 1884, LaMarcus Thompson opened the world's first roller coaster. At 10 cents a ride, Thompson averaged more than $600 per day in income. The roller coaster was the first ride to open at Coney Island, the nation's best known amusement park at the edge of the Atlantic Ocean in New York City. Soon, Coney Island added a hotel, a horse racing track, and became the center of entertainment in that area of the country. Similar amusement parks located within easy reach of the city were built around the country. There's an early photograph of Coney Island. Vaudeville shows. Cities with their dense population offer many glitzy shows and various types of entertainment. At first, vaudeville shows were a medley of musical drama, songs, and off-color comedy. In 1881, an entrepreneur, Tony Pastor, opened a theater in New York, aiming to provide families with straight, clean variety shows. By 1900, a few companies owned chains of vaudeville theaters stretching across the country. Several major cities hosted expeditions of new technology and entertainment during the Gilded Age. How did these expeditions like these reflect the times? Well, the Gilded Age, of course, is marked by industrialization and urbanization. Both stimulated innovation and invention. Expeditions and extravaganzas in different cities showed off these new advances and created a demand for new technologies. In your lesson reflection, what forms of entertainment popular during the Gilded Age are still popular today? What does their enduring popularity suggest about entertainment during this time? Of course, roller coasters and amusement parks. Every amusement park tries to outdo the other one with their newest and biggest and fastest roller coasters. The Old West inspired competitions such as riding, roping, contest, Western movies eventually. Spectator sports such as baseball, horse racing, bicycle racing, boxing, and football were all popular in the Gilded Age and remain popular today. The fact that the Gilded Age was the beginning of the modern age of entertainment, and a lot of these entertainment options are still available today, is an indication of the impact this period of time had on our nation's history. Hopefully you enjoyed 9.6. Until next time, Mr. Clark is out.